Dear students, welcome you all. I am Dr. Ananya Chatterjee of Holdia Government College, Assistant Professor of Sociology. Today we will be discussing the dramaturgical approach developed by Erving Goffman. In this lecture, we will learn about the brief sketch of the life of Erving Goffman, his theory of impression management, and other concepts like front stage and backstage, appearance and manner, focused and unfocused interaction, encounters and stigma. These are all very important concepts that were developed by Erving Goffman through his different writings. Goffman was a Canadian American sociologist. He was born in Canada in June 1922 and later came to USA and died on November 19th in 1982 in the United States. He was noted for his studies of face-to-face communication and related rituals of social interaction. That is, he focused on everyday interactions that we have with our other fellow human beings, other social actors who are present in the social situation in our everyday life. His first major work was The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, which was published in 1959. And in this book, Goffman laid down the basic arguments and the principles of the dramaturgical perspective that he had developed. He also applied this perspective in his later works, like his works on stigma and his study of the asylums. In later works of 1979, like the frame analysis, this was published in 1979, and Forms of Talk, which was published just before his death in 1981, focused on the ways people frame or create and sustain the sense of social reality through the communication process. Goffman was influenced by many intellectual figures, including functionalist sociologists like Emile Durkheim, Radcliffe Brown, Talcott Parsons, as well as the writings of the symbolic interactionist theorist Herbert Blumer. He was also influenced by the phenomenological theories of Alfred Schutz. He was influenced by the writings of German sociologist George Simmel and the psychoanalytical theories of Sigmund Freud also left indelible marks on Goffman's writings. Goffman taught at the University of California and later at the University of Pennsylvania. I would also like to share another interesting fact about Goffman with you, that is her daughter. She is also a very well-known sociologist. Now, if we come to discuss the theory or the dramaturgical approach as developed by Goffman, we will see that unlike the functionalists who focused on macro structures of the society, Goffman believed that small aspects of social life also matter. If we have to understand the nuances of the social life and the social structure, then we have to focus on everyday interaction patterns of ordinary people and not only on major social institutions like caste, family, economic organization, political structure of the society, and he turned this into a systematic theoretical perspective and research methodology known as the dramaturgical perspective. In his writings or in his analysis, Goffman also identified three reasons as to why it is important to study the everyday interaction pattern. These everyday interaction patterns may seem trivial, but these are nonetheless important because our everyday routine provides and illustrates the structure of our lives. How we conduct our everyday life is not only determined by the larger social structures but also by the interactions that take place between individuals and groups. Interactions between family members, interactions between strangers, interactions between friends. These are all very important and they also require sociological analysis. Human beings or the social actors, they are capable of thinking. They are rational beings who have the agency to interpret a social situation and act on the basis of that interpretations. And that is why these interactions are important as they tell us a lot about our larger society also. Goffman also outlined the ways in which social life is like a theater where there are actors on stage as well as the audience who are watching this performance and commenting on that. That is, Goffman here compares the social life with the theater and the social actors as actors on stage. We play the role for the audience. The audience are the other members of the society who are present in a particular social situation. We inhabit the stages and sets, that is, the social settings that we inhabit or in which we interact are similar to the stage and the theater. And like in theater, in social setting also, we use various props. Props means various kinds of objects. For example, it may be a chair, it may be a glass or an umbrella, which helps the actor to express himself better by using that prop while he is acting on the stage. Likewise, in social interaction, we also use various props according to the role that we are playing. If I am a teacher, I may carry books to the classroom. A doctor has a stethoscope. These are various props. These props always may not be things. For example, when I am playing the role of a mother to my child, I may use a specific tone of my voice to reprimand him or to scold him. So, that specific tone of voice becomes my prop while I am playing the role of the mother. And like in theater, in social settings, we also have the scripts when we are playing our social roles. The scripts are the social expectations of performing a specific social role. The verbal communication, the gestures that we make, the way we communicate in a social interaction situation are all, according to Goffman, is comparable with the setting of a theatre. The most important thing, according to Goffman, in any situation of social interaction is impression management. That is our attempt to actively control the way others perceive us. And this impression management is crucial to our identity construction. If we think about our present day scenario, then we can think about our virtual identities in Facebook or on Instagram, where we constantly post certain things, certain pictures, certain updates of statuses which portray a specific image of ourselves on Facebook or in virtual world. Likewise, according to Goffman, in real world also we are constantly creating an image of ourselves to the other social actors who are present in any social interaction situation. For example, for each of us, the day starts by getting dressed. And how we dress is a crucial piece of impression management, because with what we wear may leave a great deal of social information alluding to our class, our subculture. If I belong to some youth subculture, I may dress in a specific way. I may wear tattoos, or I may color my hairs, which is not noticeable in older generations. It may allude to my sexuality, interests, and sometimes even politics or ideas. For example, in our society, we sometimes associate certain colors with certain political parties or certain states of mind. For example, red is often associated with love and care, green with youth and vitality, while white is associated with peace. Following this theatrical analogy, Goffman spoke of a front stage as well as a backstage. Just like in theatre, in everyday life, in our everyday interaction, there is also a front stage, and front stage is that part of the performance or the interaction that generally functions in rather fixed and general ways to define the situation for those who observe the performance. It is basically the setting in which the interaction takes place, and it gives us the context to interpret the ongoing interaction. Whether the interaction is taking place in a hospital, in a dining room of a family, in a college classroom, or in a TV studio, the context varies, and depending on the context, we interpret the interaction. Goffman also discussed a backstage. Backstage is a place where the facts that are suppressed in the front or various kinds of informal actions may appear. Backstage, by the way, is adjacent to the front stage, but at the same time, it is cut off from the front stage. These two are separate arenas, and it is expected that no member of the audience will enter the backstage. If it happens, it makes the performance difficult. The staff room in a college is the backstage, where the professors prepare their lectures, engage in informal interactions with their colleagues. But the classroom is the front stage, and They deliver their performances as teachers in the classroom in front of the students who are their audience. And though the staff room and classroom exist within the same physical setting adjacent to each other, they are distinct and separate from each other. And students, those who are the audience of professors' performances, are generally restricted from entering the staff room, because according to Goffman, the presentation of self in the front stage and in the back stage is different. Now, within the front stage, Goffman further distinguished between setting and the personal front. The setting refers to the physical scene that must be there if the actors are to perform. For example, a surgeon would require operation theatre or operation room, or a taxi driver would require a cab. An ice skater would require the ice or the skating rink, etc. The personal front consists of the items of expressive equipment that the audience identify with the performer and expect them to carry with them into the setting. For example, a surgeon is expected to dress in a medical gown, have certain instruments, the professors are supposed to carry books, etc. Again, Goffman further subdivided the personal front into appearance and manner. Appearance includes those items that tells the performer's social status, like the gown of the doctor or the white apron of the nurse, black coat of the judges and lawyers. And manners tell the audience what sort of role the performer expects to play in the situation. That is the use of the physical mannerisms or their demeanor. In general, we expect appearance and manner to be consistent. If there is some kind of inconsistency, then it will be difficult to both for the audience and for the performer to interpret the situation. But Goffman argues that people generally try to present an idealized picture of themselves in the front stage. We all want to appear as a model or present ourselves in a very good light in the front stage in front of our audience. So, they feel that they must hide things in the performances. Like, they may want to conceal that they were engaged in some secret pleasure prior to the performance. Or maybe they have some history in their past life which is inconsistent or incompatible with the role that they are now playing. Secondly, the actors may want to conceal the errors that have been made while they were preparing for the performance. For example, the cab driver may conceal the fact that he started in a wrong direction. The actors only show the end products and conceal the process. For example, the professors spend several hours preparing a lecture, but they act as if they have always known the facts. Or, for example, if we think of the celebrities, the film stars, we only see their appearances, their glamour, but the hard work behind that glamour, behind that beauty these are well hidden from us. Goffman also argued that in the front stage, the actors try to convey the impression that they are closer to the audience than they actually are. For example, they may try to create the impression that the performance in which they are engaged is the only important thing for them in the moment. But that may not be true. Another technique people employ in front stage, it is employed by the performers, not by the audience, is the process of mystification. And by this process, they try to restrict the contact between themselves and the audience. They create or generate a kind of social distance to create a sense of awe, a sense of reverence among the audience. And this keeps the audience from questioning the performances. According to Goffman, there are two basic types of interaction. All our social life is actually series of interactions, and according to Goffman, all these interactions can be categorized into two types: focused interaction and unfocused interaction. Unfocused interaction takes place whenever individuals in a given setting exhibit mutual awareness of others present. This usually happens when large number of people have gathered together. For example, on a busy street, a theater crowd, or the audience at an auditorium, or at a football stadium, participants at a party, or in this picture, we can see this is the picture of a fair where a large number of people have assembled. In case of unfocused interaction, we are aware that there are other people in the background there, but we do not directly engage with them. We do not directly interact with them, but we take into cognizance their presence in that particular social setting. And focused interaction occurs when individuals directly attend to what each other says or does. Focused interaction is sensed or interpreted as a mutual activity, and the basic unit of focused interaction is encounter. Encounter is initiated by someone by making an opening move, typically by means of a special expression of the eyes. It may be the raising of the eyebrows, but sometimes by a statement. For example, if I say to someone, can we go for a dinner? Or a special tone of voice at the beginning of the statement. So, our daily life, according to Goffman, is nothing but a series of encounters, and each of these encounters are separated by markers which Goffman called as brackets, and these brackets distinguish each episode of focused interaction from one before and from unfocused interactions going on in the background. For example, when I am finished having coffee with my friend in a cafe, we can say each other goodbye, which marks the end of that encounter. Or when I first meet and greet my friend in a cafe, then that marks the beginning of a particular episode of focused interaction, and this opening gesture distinguishes this encounter between myself and my friend from the other unfocused interactions going on in the background. Another important concept that was developed by Goffman is the concept of stigma. Now, according to Goffman, we interact with each other in our capacity as an incumbent of a particular role. That is, I interact with my students as a teacher. I am performing the role of a teacher, and the students are performing the role of the students, and we interact with each other in our capacity as teacher and students. Now, sometimes, according to Goffman, there is a gap between our virtual social identity. What is virtual social identity? Virtual social identity is what people think that this person ought to be, and what that person actually is. That is their actual social identity. And when there is a gap between this virtual social identity and actual social identity, that leads to stigma. That person is stigmatized. Stigma can again be of two types. One is discredited stigma. Here, the actor assumes that the audience knows the difference between his virtual social identity and actual social identity. The difference is visible, it is perceptible, identifiable by the audience. So, it is discredited stigma. For example, for someone who does not have a limb, here I have put a picture of a woman who is the victim of acid attack. Her face is distorted, and in a patriarchal society like India, where woman's value is decided by her beauty and the color of her skin, she is stigmatized. Here, the stigma is known to the audience, but discreditable stigma is one where the difference is not known by the audience, it is not perceivable by them. It may be discovered by them, they may come to know it eventually, but for now, the actor has hidden it well. For example, in a homophobic society where homosexuality is stigmatized, a person may pass as a straight guy, and until and unless his status or his sexual identity or sexual orientation is revealed, he is not stigmatized, but the potential to be stigmatized is still there. So, these are the some basic concepts that were given and discussed and developed by Erving Goffman, and in the light of his dramaturgical perspective, he threw light on the micro aspects of the social life, and he again and again emphasized that along with the major social structures, macro social structures, micro social structures are also important, and they must be sociologically investigated. And after going through this unit, you should be able to answer these probable questions. Unlike functionalists who focused on macro structures of the society, Goffman believed that small aspects of social life also matter, because if we have to understand the nuances of the social life and the social structure, then we have to focus on the everyday interaction patterns of ordinary people and not only on major social institutions. And he turned this into, as I said earlier, a systemic theoretical perspective. And not only the theoretical perspective, he also developed research methods, methodological approach to study social life from dramaturgical perspective. And he identified various reasons why everyday social life, everyday social interaction pattern is important for the sociologists, because the larger social structures are actually nothing but the aggregation of the social interaction patterns, micro interaction patterns that are ongoing between various groups, various social actors. And these social actors, they can actively create the social meaning. They can actively interpret a social situation, and on the basis of the meaning, on the basis of that interpretation, they create and recreate the social reality. And that is why it is important to study the microstructures. And his analysis of stigma is also very important, because in a society we often find various social individuals or social roles that are stigmatized. Though these persons often inhabit the margins of the society, and the social interaction patterns with these stigmatized persons also gives us an idea about how the society functions, how the society structures itself, or how the larger social patterns or the larger macro social structures leave some of the members behind. So, Goffman's dramaturgical interpretation of the social life is very important, because it sheds a new light on our understanding of the social reality, our interpretation of the social situation. In the social world, in the everyday interaction situations, we follow certain rules, we follow certain norms, and we present ourselves to the audience. And since we always actively create a specific impression, a set of impression, we try to give a specific impression of ourselves to our audience, we present ourselves in a certain way. And this is also very relevant in today's world, where we see the proliferation of the various social networking sites like Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, etc. There, this presentation of self and impression management is at its height. We always post various pictures, various status updates which reflect positively on us, and we give a specific impression to the larger audience. Now the question is, when if I relate this to the study of stigma or analysis of stigma, the question is, like, when there is a mismatch between this status or this identity and the actual identity the person has, does that lead to stigma? Or people accept this kind of mismatch, or how the interaction in these social networking sites are being governed by the dramaturgical principles or dramaturgical analogy that was drawn by Goffman. Because here the audience is larger. I can reach thousands of people at the click of my mouse. So, how to interpret the current society in order to interpret these social networking sites and the ongoing interactions and also the associated threats like identity theft, cyberbullying, etc. These are also somehow related and can be explained by using the dramaturgical perspective and the theory of impression management as developed by Erving Goffman.